everyone. Welcome to another episode of Suffer. Here, we are with Mrs. Ira Singhal, who is an IAS officer and is highest scoring individual in the UPSC Civil Service examination for the year 2014. She is an alumni of Faculty of Management Studies, University of Delhi. First of all, thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out time for this interview. I'm very excited to learn more about your journey. So let's get started.
Yes,
Ma'am, please tell us something about your childhood and your school life.
I was literally the most boring child in school. I was this kid who stood, who was made to stand at the first position in every row and sat in the front seat because I was so tiny. And I was the class monitor. So I was really a horribly boring child. And I did nothing interesting. I did nothing wild. I was, my neighbors used to actually kidnap me and lock me in their house and say that play with our children and make them like you. Because I was that boring and that good of a child. So I did absolutely nothing. I protested about nothing. I I just followed what I was told. So yeah, but I think it's also the fault of my parents because they were never unfair or unjust. Also, so really there was nothing for me to protest about. You can only protest about something if there is something to protest about. At least in my opinion, I know a lot of people find things to protest no matter what, but so we had a lot of problems in our family. So really, because our family was going through so many things that as an individual, you really couldn't create more problems. There was no time for anybody to give attention to you. And I lived in a joint family. So I had all my cousins and all living in the same house, and we were the same age, like between 2 years of age, there were three of us. So we got along really well, and like I had my friends in my house living with me in a way. So it was a pretty it was a childhood which was about just being a good kid so that you didn't create problems for a family that was already going through so much. So yeah, that was my childhood. So really a horribly boring child.
No, it's not boring. It is so good. You always
Yeah.
wanted to be on top.
No, I
So,
didn't. I really did not care about marks. I still don't. I have never been a person who could study for marks. My that was the one regret my parents had, that why do you not care about getting better marks in school? But really to me, I liked learning, but not for marks and not for going to school. So I used to, in fact, the only rebellion I've ever done is read novels hidden inside my textbook. That's literally the only rebellion I have ever done. So imagine, I was so boring that even my rebellion was about reading.
that's great, ma'am. That's great. Ma'am, who supported you most in your journey, even after having so much problems in your family?
Uh, Absolutely my parents, and then my extended family as well. We had a lot of problems growing up, but that was not about uh, about us within the family. It was external issues. So it was not about the whole family unit in itself. And that's been a one big strength for us, that no matter what the problems came, it wasn't affecting our internal dynamics with each other. It wasn't about, us having problems within the family. So even though we had a joint family and everybody lived together, two of like my dad and two of my uncles and all of us as kids, it was not that. So my biggest strength was obviously my own parents, and then my extended family, my grandmother, all of my cousins and everybody in my little circle. And I have been exceptionally lucky that I even had friends who've been supporting me. So I was very lucky to even have friends who've been there.
Definitely, ma'am. Without a family, a person lacks proper guidance in his life. Because of family, a person can overcome all the obstacles
Absolutely.
that come his way and become something in life. Family plays an
Absolutely.
important role in everyone's life.
Yes.
So, my next
Unfortunately,
question,
yeah.
yeah. Being a child, you might have many career options you wanted to opt for. How did you decide to move towards preparing for UPSC, which is considered as one of the most toughest examination in India?
It is not considered as one of the toughest in India. It is one of the toughest in the world. It is the toughest in India. Let's put things in perspective. No, I did not decide to do this. I mean, this was something that I wanted to do as a child, but my decision did not come out of childhood. My decision came as a person who had experience of the world. And I did this after my engineering, my MBA, and actually having worked in the corporate sector in a managerial role for 2 years. So I did not make this choice out of childhood dreams solely. This was a career option that I had thought of as a child, but when I made the choice, it was as a adult who had who had experience in the world. I had traveled quite a bit. I had worked. I had handled responsibility. So I knew what I was doing. I knew what I wanted, and I was very clear on myself as an individual. I wasn't doing this to gain a position in the world or to prove something to someone or to, fulfill an ego issue or, get power or have the lal batti or something. But for me, this was simply about getting to do something with my life wherein I made an impact, wherein I could affect people's lives for the better. And so it wasn't a childhood thought about, it was not a childhood plan. It was something that I planned at a later stage after having learned a lot about myself, my capabilities, and what would give me emotional satisfaction.
That's remarkable. Every person has some ups and downs. So, did you face any problem while preparing for examination?
Oh, so this exam is the best way to torture yourself. It tortures you emotionally, physically, mentally, financially, in every way possible. This exam will take a toll on you. You lock yourself in a room with absolutely no one around you, just yourself for company, and you kind of keep attempting to do something again and again, hoping you'll get better results the next time you try it. And you really don't know, because um, there are a million people giving it and only 1,000 will get something. So really, this in a way is pretty much the worst kind of self-inflicted torture, because by the way, giving this exam is a choice you make. Nobody forces you to do it. It's not compulsory for anything. It's just a choice that you decided to take for yourself. So yeah, it is tough in all respects.
And what was your reaction when you came to know that you are highest scoring individual in the UPSC examination?
It was, thank God this is over. Honestly, at that point, my only reaction was, I'm so glad I don't have to do this again. I'm so glad this is done. And a lot of thankfulness for the fact that my efforts did bring a result. I don't really care about the rank. I would have been happy with the last rank as long as I got to do this work. So for me, that was not the important part ever. And I wasn't looking to get a rank and get to prove something, because really you need a rank just because of an ego satisfaction. That was my goal. So for me, this was simply about the fact that the journey of giving that exam had ended. I could actually now go on to do the thing that I wanted to do, which was get to make that difference that I was looking to make. Secondly, um, you know, a lot of people do this and never get the result, never get what they wanted. And I was one of the lucky few in that respect whose efforts did give them the result. And this exam is not about being this smart person. Obviously, if you get selected, you have to be smart. But it also is about really the way you look at the world, the way you perceive the world around me, the way you understand the world around you, and how you react to the world around you. So uh, just that makes it so much tougher, because you don't know if your perspective is correct or not. If your perspective is what really is the truth. So that makes it a lot more challenging in a way.
It would have been a proud moment for you as well as your family. So
Really not
even
a proud moment for myself. I'm being very honest. I don't know about my family. I'm sure it was, but for me, it was just relief. This is over. So yeah, like I said, it's a self-inflicted torture, and you can finally stop yourself from that.
okay, ma'am. So even after clearing the exam, the journey was not easy for you as you were not allowed to take the position in the office. So could you tell more about your experience in this regard?
So this was my first three attempts. I unfortunately kept getting selected in the same service every time, basis my rank and my choices that I used to fill in. And that service declared me unfit on medical grounds. So, and as a person with disability, if you don't apply in the handicapped category, you are not given a seat in the general category anyway, because you don't fulfill the medical criteria. So, because of the medical condition criteria, you will only get a disability seat. Now, what happens in this particular case is that there are two criteria when it is about people with disabilities. First is that what is your ability, and second is what is your disability. So, when we talk about the criteria for ability, I fulfill the condition for almost all the services. But when we talk about the criteria for disability, unfortunately, my disability is not accepted by most of the services. So I was allowed only in a few services basis my disability, and actually not even a few, just the IAS, for which I did not have a rank. So despite clearing the exam and despite government acknowledging that I had the abilities required to do the jobs, I was not given a job, because someone one day had decided that they didn't like my disability. And I didn't actually know about this happening, because I had quit my job to get into the IAS or the IFS. So when I saw my rank, I knew I had to prepare again. And I was already the first time that this happened. I was already preparing for my second attempt. And I started getting phone calls from other candidates asking me, do you know what happened to you? And when you don't know something has happened to you, when people call you and say, do you know what happened to you? You start trying to figure out what has happened. So then I found out that this had happened. And all of those people who had called me were also people to whom this had happened. So this was not just me, it was actually happening to quite a few people. So, and I realized that I had come into the services to make a difference. So I thought maybe this is the difference that I'm meant to make. And I decided to challenge it in court. And it took time, but I won in the court and I got my service. This is my previous attempts.
Even after so many hurdles, you emerged as a winner at last. So you have taken several initiatives regarding women empowerment. So what are your views on women empowerment?
We need it desperately. And unfortunately, women all over the world are not empowered, much as we want to think about it. It's not the case. Women, I was just doing another session on reproductive rights of women, and unfortunately, even in countries like the US, women do not have reproductive rights over their bodies. If you guys wouldn't have heard of it, but there's this law that Texas state is trying to pass where they're outlawing abortion after a particular period of pregnancy. And women across the world are still not allowed to take decisions for themselves. And it comes from the fact that, women empowerment, unfortunately, is literally just about allowing women to take decisions about their own lives. It's not even about other people, or it's about, controlling someone else. It's literally about getting to make a decision about your own life. And that's what and which also means that you get to live as an equal in a way, or even if not an equal, just as a recognized dignified human being. And that's where women empowerment becomes very, very vital, that we really need um, that at least that basic decision making power of how we want to live our own lives. And all empowerment for all backward sections starts with financial empowerment. Till you have control over financial resources, till you can manage the consequences of your decisions on your own money, you will not be empowered. So it all starts with women getting into jobs, getting into businesses, earning money for themselves, having control over property resources. So it's vital that to live a dignified life, we get empowered, we get resources.
Your work towards women is really inspiring. I hope people out there will understand your point of view and contribute towards a better future. So, ma'am, my next question is, you have been doing a lot about upliftment of disabled persons. Can you tell us your accomplishments in this field?
Oh God, I don't think I'm accomplished at all. There is so much more to do. But I was joint director in social welfare department, and I set up a lot of schemes. I moved out of the departments. I'm not really sure if where they are at right now, also because it's been COVID, so things are a little slower working these days. But right from special high support need patients to setting up a college for people with disabilities and uh, university for people with disabilities and to better recognition in jobs to healthcare and to basically all segments of your life where disability affects you. So we made plans for that. So hopefully they'll see the light of the day soon. Those schemes will come out soon. I put everything in the budget. So let's see.
That's great. So, what kind of role do you play as brand ambassador for the Ministry of Women and Child Development and Niti Aayog?
Basically, go on sessions like this and talk about women empowerment.
So, in your journey while you are preparing for UPSC, is there any time when you decided to quit, as after 3 attempts you are not just getting a go to the office?
Oh, you think about quitting every day. Like I said, it's the worst possible torture. So you want to quit every day. But in my life, I have been trained. Okay, so this is where I talk about this not being an emotive decision and this being a decision that you take in all rationality. One, I had already cleared a lot of national level exams. So I knew what my performance is likely to be. So I was able to judge my performance in terms of that. Secondly, I was not doing this to prove something to anybody. So I did not have my ego associated with it. So I could see the whole thing a lot more clearly. I could see, evaluate my own performance very clearly. Also, I've been someone who's very honest with themselves about themselves. It's very easy to be honest about other people, but it's very tough to be honest to yourself about yourself. But that's something that I've always focused on. So because I'm somebody who's very clear on who I am and I'm very, very clear on what my talents or my limitations are, for me, it was not a problem that, you know, to every time be able to see where I could improve myself. See, that's the biggest reason you decide to quit because you don't know what to do now. You find yourself helpless. I did not believe that I was helpless. I could always find something to do better, something to change in myself. I'm not someone who's used to blaming the world, blaming the teachers, blaming the society, blaming the books, blaming my life, blaming my parents, my family, my circumstances. So when you stop blaming everybody else and you just try to find something to fix in yourself, it's easy to stay on your chosen path. So that's what I did. I basically found my own mistakes, my own faults, and tried to correct them. Because that doesn't make you feel helpless. You only want to quit when you feel helpless. I did not make myself feel helpless at any point. So, which is why I could do this for that long.
That's remarkable. We should keep motivating ourselves in our daily lives as well. So, my next question is, what are you working on currently and what are your future plans?
can't really discuss that currently. Working on things, and the best part about being in the civil services is that you don't have to make future plans. The government sort of makes them for you. So, you can't decide, I want to do this and go to that posting or anything. So I'm one of those people who's open to whatever comes my way, and I will happily take up the challenges that are thrown at my way.
So my last question is, you are indeed an inspiration for all of us. What message would you like to give to the younger aspirants?
My one message is be very realistic about who you are, about this exam, and why you want to do this. Till you are not, and please do this for yourself. Please pick careers, pick aims, pick your life paths. This is your own interests, talents, and your own desires, not someone else's, not because your neighbor did it, not because I did it, not because anybody else did it, because you are not the same as anybody else. Also, do not let the world define your limits. Do not let the world tell you who you can be. Nobody knows you better than you know yourself. Nobody knows, your thoughts, your talents, your interests, your aspirations for yourself better than you do. So nobody else can make that call for you. Nobody else can make that judgment for you. So, make your own plans, make your own choices, and don't let the world tell you who to be. Don't let the world define you. You decide who you're going to be, who you decide what path you're going to tread, and you decide how you're going to live your life. My best wishes to you all, and I hope you all have brilliant futures ahead.
That's great, ma'am. We should define ourselves and not the world should define us. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time. And your journey has been so wonderful and inspiring. It teaches us that it is going to be hard, but hard doesn't mean it is impossible. Thank you, ma'am.
My pleasure, and good luck.